All right, all right, all right. So this afternoon, I have someone special and truly dear to my heart. I feel like I've known this person for my whole life.
Mm,
And it just feels so organic. It was really just like love at first sight, if
yeah.
I'm being quite honest, and quite frank. But this person is someone very dear and near to me. And it's been a while since we've been trying to get this conversation even started. But today, things finally came together and aligned. I'm going to read a formal bio of her briefly, but then I'm going to introduce how I know her personally, and then I'll have her take the stage. So this afternoon, I have Adesimbo Bello Ukuri.
Ukiri.
Ukiri.
Yeah.
Ukiri, yes. I've never said your last name. I just
Nope.
realized that.
Yeah.
Okay. And she is a visionary CEO of Avon Healthcare Limited, which is spreadheading its evolution from a startup in 2012 into the leading health management organization. Symbol also sits on the Group Leadership Council of Harris Holding Limited, where she contributes to group strategy and participates in the development of executive talent across subsidiary companies. She's also a passionate healthcare and technology advocate, often featuring as a contributing resource and public speaker for global organizations and institutions seeking expert healthcare perspectives in sub-Saharan Africa. She is a board director of several organizations, including Avon Medical Practice Limited, where she sits on the Customer Service and Patient Safety Committee. And she's also board director for Harris Life Insurance Limited, where she is a Enterprise Risk Management Committee. Where she's a member of the Audit Governance and Compliance Committee, as well as the Enterprise Risk Management Committee. She was previously the chair of both the Board and Establishment and General Purpose and the Enterprise Risk Management Committee. She's also a member of the Tony Alumelu Foundation's Technology and Data Advisory Committee, and she is on the faculty of UBA Academy of the CEO Instruction Program, where she designs and delivers training on data awareness and analytics as part of the CEO Toolkit. She also sits on the advisory board of Harris. No, we're gonna finish because people need to know who you are. We're gonna wrap up. Let people know who you are of Harris Holding Academy, where she provides training on diverse business management topics to incoming and existing staff across all careers. That's a mouthful. And I wanted people to really get to know you professionally, because today we're not going to be really talking much about your professional career, but more so diving deep into who you are personally. And it's with great pleasure that I introduce you as my aunt, my newfound aunt.
Yeah.
Someone that I discovered as a relative about a year ago, but someone who is just warm, who is very hospitable, who I find comfort in going to her home, eating moi moi, drinking gari, relaxing, having heartfelt conversations about life, about God, about experiences. I just consider you a place like home. Like, I've been here in Nigeria, not having like my immediate family here. You are my family here in Nigeria, and I just truly love and appreciate you. And it's an honor to welcome you to the Seasoned Woman podcast.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. It's a pleasure to be here. And I have to say, honestly, since we connected about a year ago, it's been wonderful having you in my life. As you know, my kids are far away from me. The nest, they've flown the nest. So my home is big and empty. And the times when you come and sit down and have my mind, we have those deep conversations are really enriching, and I love them. I love them a lot. And I've been looking forward to being a part of this. So let's dive right in.
So, there's many reasons why I had you come on the podcast, but outside of the fact that I love you dearly, I really just admire you. I think you have such an amazing story, and your life is definitely a testament. And I really want, whoever comes in contact with this episode to really be able to take away from your experiences, and really get to just be encouraged. That there's light at the end of there's light at the end of the tunnel. So that being said, I want to dive deep into just the beginning. As a young woman, what did you think or envision your life would be at this very stage?
Wow. I mean, I'm going to have to dig in a little bit deep to
Okay.
go back that far back. I read law. Initially, honestly, I thought I was going to be a writer, a journalist of some sort. But my parents they just used to show me, the shoes of journalists and say, you see that man is a journalist, just look at his shoes. And they'd be all tattered and worn out. Do you want that? No, I don't want that. So from journalism, somehow I decided I was going to be a lawyer, and that's what I read. I had aspirations of being this really hugely successful torts lawyer, winning millions for people who had, been deprived of something that was their right or something like that. I've always been very much into human rights and a strong sense of fairness and justice that should prevail in any given situation. So I thought I was going to be this successful lawyer, but I ended up working in the bank. And from then on, I kind of became more and more commercial oriented, business oriented. But my law never really left me. And if then I'd been asked what I thought my future would be like, I thought, okay, get married. I always wanted to marry late because I thought, look, traditional African families, young girls are quite protected and very much controlled.
Yeah.
So I thought I need some time of independence before I marry. So I always thought I was going to marry late. I wanted a well-established career. And then I thought, married, I thought I was going to have like 6 sons. I wanted six sons. I wanted to have 6 boys and live happily ever after with my family and then have a successful career. Mm-hmm. But that didn't quite turn out the way I thought. I did get married. I have 2 children, a son, a daughter first, and a son. But the marriage was a very difficult one, a very, very difficult one. And I left the marriage after about 10 years. And it was so difficult and so traumatic. When I left fleeing, and the life I live now, I rebuilt from zero. And that's literal zero. In fact, I rebuilt from a -0, about probably about 12 years ago. So I'm one of those, like a phoenix that rises up.
Yeah, definitely.
So my life is a huge testament of God's mercy, his blessings, and his ability to create something out of what appears to be nothing. And more than anything, a testament of his love and the power of his love.
It truly, truly is. And it's like, people would never know, right?
No.
Seeing you're conservative, you're about your business, you're successful. Like, people don't know the story behind such a successful woman. And so let's dive a little deeper. You gave us a synopsis of what you thought your life would be versus what it is now. And so I guess my biggest question to you is, how were you able to get through these challenges? I think there's a huge issue in general with people with dealing with life on what it was supposed to be, or what the expectations of life were supposed to be versus what the reality is, right? And it takes us a long time. Like, people don't really acknowledge the fact that people grieve.
Yeah.
And experience grief and loss from what they thought life would be versus what it is, And so how were you able to cope, right? You had gotten married young and, didn't expect that to happen. And then you end up in a marriage that maybe initially you thought was, amazing, but then along the years, maybe things then change. So talk a little bit about that process of coming to that reality of, okay, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I expected.
Yeah. Honestly, as a Christian woman, one of the hardest decisions that, a woman ever takes, even when you're not a Christian woman, is a decision to leave a marriage. So if you've been raised in a good family, when you love God and you decided you're going to live your life in a manner that honors God and that vows are not meant to be broken, it's a very, very tough decision to make. But what I always say to women also is that, Christ made the sacrifice for all of us. Yeah. There's no other person's life that needs to be sacrificed for anybody, And I think the question that helped me to decide that I needed to put an end to that part of my life was that, okay, what is going to bring glory to God? I remember looking, of course, I consumed the scriptures in those days. Sometimes, I look on those days as tough as they were, as probably a really enjoyable, the most enjoyable part of my spiritual journey so far, because I used to literally consume the scriptures.
Yeah.
And when I came to the realization that at the end of the day, what choice would glorify God, and what choice would bring God the glory? And I decided what would bring God the glory is for me to be fully and totally becoming who He had created me to be. And for that not to be cut short in any way, for that not to be destroyed, having my life or any aspect of myself destroyed wasn't going to bring Him glory, And at that point, I left. And it's like I said, a hard decision for a woman to make. But once you make it, and you make it in faith, I don't think the story of my journey can be complete without my faith and the role that my faith played in getting me to where I am today. I think I'm digressing because now I'm trying very fast to remember what was the question.
No, you're good. You're good. I mean, I think you're really walking through like those moments and what it felt like. But basically, I was just asking you, like, in the moments that you realized that this was not what you signed up for, this is not what you expected.
And mourning that. Mourning is important.
That. Like, what was that feeling like?
Yeah, I remember someone saying to me, and it was a process, a journey. Nobody wakes up one day and decides I'm going to end this marriage, or this marriage is not going to, it might destroy me if I remain in it. But I remember that I had to give it everything, spiritually, family, society, other institutions that are meant to help to prop up marriages and support marriages. I went through each and every one. So my mourning started, my sense of grief and loss started before I left the marriage.
Yeah. Which I heard what actually happens to most women.
Yeah. I mean, I was grieving the loss of what I thought I would have and what I found myself in for years before I left. And that is why coming to the decision to leave also took such a long time. I mean, I had people around me who were amazed I was still in it, in spite of all that I was going through. And in spite of what they thought were the obvious dangers to myself, to my life, to my person.
Yeah.
And I remained in it for a while still, because I wasn't yet at that stage where I thought I had exhausted all the possibilities to make it work and to still preserve my life and, myself, and find a way to continue to exist in it. And when all of that was exhausted and it became clear that I couldn't, then I started grieving.
Yeah.
I started grieving the loss of what I thought was going to be my life, and what now was the certainty that I wasn't going to have that. And that here on, my life was going to be very different. I even had no idea really what it was going to be like. And that was tough. But it's good that it happened that way, because when you've grieved and you've come to terms with it, before actually taking the decision, then you are dead certain that that's the right decision. Because very often people, and not just women, but sometimes women, we take these decisions without having properly thought through what it means and how radically our lives are going to change. So when we take decisions and then we act on it, and then it catches us unawares, then we're at a loss, and then we flounder, we don't know what next to do, we go back on the decisions we've made. And it just prolongs, whatever the situation is. So grieving and mourning the loss of what could have been, should have been, that I desired for it to be, was an essential part of my transition. I actually remember, and this is funny, I think like 2 years or so after I'd left the marriage, and I was in a social gathering, and a song came on, and that was our song.
Oh, wow.
And I was at a table with some of my other friends, some of which were married, and maybe, in fact, all of which were married, and who knew my story. And some of them knew the song with me and my ex. So when the song came on, they immediately felt for me, and they looked at me, and they were feeling sorry. I was dancing to the song.
Oh, wow.
Because what came back was a rush of good memories. And when you've mourned and you've moved on, then the memories don't hurt. There were good memories. I said, Kai, this man used this song to deceive me.
Wow.
That I actually believed the words of this song at one time, but this song is sweet, And I got up and I was dancing, and my friends were absolutely amazed. And that's what grieving and mourning and allowing yourself to grieve and mourn can do for you. It can set you free. set you free from bitterness, from resentment, from anger,
Yeah.
and you're able to still love the person. I mean, I love my ex, not in the same way, but what I mean is I wish him no harm.
Yeah.
If I had a way to bless him, I would, and I wish him every happiness. If I could contribute to his happiness without harming myself, I would,
do that.
and I think that's the importance of mourning and acknowledging that sense of loss to yourself. It strengthens you for whatever the future has planned for you.
That's beautiful. And I hope people are really like listening to the journey, right? Because you start off mourning, you contemplate for quite a long time. If you don't mind me asking, how long did you mourn before you finally came to the decision that, okay, this is what I'm going to do? What was the duration, would you say?
Okay, so I'm going to put it in parts. There was first a realization. No, I take that back. There was first an acceptance of what my reality was.
Okay.
So because for quite a while, we fool ourselves. We convince ourselves, oh, no, it's not that bad. Oh, no, that's not what is happening. Oh, that might be other women's issues, but that's not my own issue. So there was first the acceptance of what my reality was. And that going through that was huge. That was the first stage of mourning.
Wow.
Accepting that this is my reality. This is what I am living. This is what I'm going through. And it's not what I bargained for. Oh my God.
What have I gotten myself
What
into?
is this?
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
There's first that stage. And that stage probably happened like 4 years. About year 3 of the marriage.
Okay.
By the 4th year, the scales fell off. And my reality was apparent. And I kind of accepted and came to terms with it by like year 4, 5. Year 3, I started saying, okay, Simbo, you need to stop fooling yourself. This is what it is. And, back and forth in my mind, I wouldn't accept it. But by year 4, I started reading voraciously about the situation I found myself. I educated myself. I read everything. I read all the books. And it's like, Simbo, come on, you're a lawyer. You're educated. You went to school. This is what you are. This is your situation. This is what your marriage is. What are you going to do about it? I also knew the statistics around what I was experiencing and how difficult, next to, I think it's less than 4%.
So these be, for the audience's sake,
yeah.
Do you mind telling them what it was you were
If you find yourself in a situation that is abusive,
yeah.
There are many marriages in which there is abuse, and there's a wide spectrum of abuse. And I don't want to make that the topic of our discussion. Yeah. It's just that, it takes a while for a woman to acknowledge to herself that this is what the situation is. And that was my situation. So there was first that morning that, oh my God, this is really my situation. And I had a period where all I did was wallow in self-pity and cry every day to God. And the power of a praying woman, I bought that book, I read it, and like a spiritual, I'm going to overcome it. Who is the devil? How dare you try me? Do you know I'm a child of God? Yeah. I can pray and things will turn around. The Bible tells me if I have as much faith as, a seed, I did all of that. Nothing changed. And then I thought, I moved on what I would call the second phase, which is, okay, I can't do anything on my own. I need help. And then approached institutions. I was Pentecostal initially. I converted to being a Catholic. I'm a Catholic now, proudly so, passionately so.
Yeah.
And so all the institutions, the Pentecostal went to see pastors, prayed with pastors in Catholic Church, went for family counseling, went to see what we call the family and marriage and family unit. Every archdiocese has one. So I tried to use all the tools, thinking I can fix this. Okay, then, I can't fix it. Society, family, and all the structures can help me fix this.
Yeah.
And then finally, nobody can fix this. And it's not getting any better. It's getting worse. It's actually getting worse. And if you want to have a life,
you have to be able to
remove yourself from this.
I asked you that because I wanted us to have like a time frame, right?
Yes.
So this happened, let's just say it started year 3, and you didn't take you until year 10.
Yeah.
To then remove yourself,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So in the grand scheme of things, it took like maybe, let's just say, give or take 7 years.
Probably. Let's say 6. So I don't feel so bad that
I
stayed too long.
No. Give or take, it took you 6 years. But the reason I'm saying this is because for me, hearing you share the story, the evolution is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Because yes, you were tussling, going back and forth. even thinking, okay, is this my reality? Okay, no, this is my reality. Okay, now that I know it's my reality, let me start searching for solutions. You search for solutions. You're like, okay, none of these solutions work. But then you come to this, dead confidence, final decision that I'm not moving forward anymore. I'm going to do the necessary for my own well-being. You leave, but then on the other side of it, 2 years later, there's this song, right? And
there's a joy.
And can we talk about trauma? Because to some people that could have been a response of trauma. It could have been like dead silence, awkwardness, feeling uncomfortable, like, oh my gosh, they're playing this song.
Yeah.
People are looking at me. I know they're probably thinking about him but you start dancing.
Yeah, it was weird.
That to me is like just beautiful in itself. But I mean, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but I do want to, like, from your younger self, looking back at what you went through, there's so many young women out there that are looking for a spouse, especially in the African culture. We know that a lot of women are put under pressure to find their significant other, get married, have a huge wedding that ends up on Bella Naija, and do give it to them, right? Show them, like, get all the bells and whistles to prove to society that they finally made it, right? And they finally achieved, marriage, right?
Yes.
And some level of acceptance and love. And so I guess from your perspective, looking back, what are some of the things that you wish you had known then before you entered into a relationship? Because I think it's so important that our young listeners know marriage is not a joke. It is extremely important, and who you marry matters. So what would you tell young people out there now, given that you've experienced this, what they should be looking for and preparing for before they make a decision like this?
I think first and foremost, look for kindness.
Yeah.
Nothing beats kindness. Anybody who has the ability to be cruel, even if they're not cruel to you, if you can see cruelty to other people, if you can see, and when I say cruelty, it's tied with vengefulness, being unforgiving, unrelenting anger.
Yeah.
And if you add that to arrogance, someone said something, and in Yoruba, it's called someone that doesn't have anybody they fear. They say something like, can I say
yes,
Yoruba?
Please, of course, yeah.
Konioni beru. There's nobody that he fears you reporting him to, or there's nobody he respects so much. When they call him, sit him down and give him a good talking to, he will listen and consider other perspectives. Please don't marry anyone like that. Somebody who believes they know it all and their word has to be the final. I mean, their opinion is the best. Nothing and nobody can top it. That's really dangerous. I didn't know all of this then, because other people who were older and wiser kind of pointed out to me, but I was like, hell no, he's good. He loves God. And also, I always thought my ex loved God. I believed that he loved God because he never missed church. Never. Never.
A steady churchgoer.
A steady every Sunday, even if we went clubbing or we went out and stayed out late and I am too tired to go to church. He's going to go to church anyway. And it made me think again that, but he loved God. How come? Loving God is not going to church. Loving God is not service in church. Loving God is watching how he loves other people. The Bible says it. How can you love the God you do not see? The people around you that you can see. How are you loving them? So it really boils down to that. Kindness and mercy. If he loves God, if he or she loves God and they have God in them, you will see love, you will see kindness, and you will see mercy. Yeah. Anybody without an ability to be merciful and kind, you're going to have problems. You're going to have real problems. Another thing I wish I knew then that I now also know is how to look at people and observe to see whether they are open to different perspectives and whether they are adaptable and whether they are capable of evolution and change where their ideas are concerned.
Yeah.
Some people are so closed, so very closed. And a closed mind does not make for growth. A closed mind does not give room to other possibilities and perspectives. And life is complex. And people are complex. And situations are going to be very, very complex as you go through life together. Things are going to change. You are going to change. So I think, those are things that if I knew, I might have made a different kind of decision when the option came whether or not to commit myself to him and marry him. And I think those are things that are useful for people that are young and considering committing
to a
partner for life. To kind of think about. But I wouldn't like kindness and mercy. Anybody that does not have the ability to be merciful is a dangerous person.
That should be a quote. That may be something that we put on as a snippet to get
people
to
kindness and mercy. How often does he forgive? How easily does he forgive? How does he love? How does he express love? Can he express love?
Yeah. And so that will move me to my next point. First and foremost, I want to say, like, to your points, I don't know if I'm feeling nostalgic or not, but today I was in church, briefly went to the service, then tuned in to the rest because I was trying to get ready for the podcast and stuff. But the message today was on emotional trauma and how emotional trauma has held people bound in certain situations longer.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, like, there are things that people are dealing with eternally that they have not even dealt with.
Yeah.
And so, the pastor was saying that, like, unfortunately, people come together and they're genuinely good people.
They are.
But they haven't dealt with their trauma. They haven't dealt with their life experiences. And unfortunately, they bring that trauma and, they bring it into the relationship or the marriage and ends up being toxic to the relationship's growth. So I think that, it's something
that's so valid.
We often don't think about, but it's like everyone has baggage.
In fact,
it's just a question of whether you deal with that baggage or not.
Yeah.
But I wanted to move on and digress a little because you're now at the point you make the decision, you've moved on, but you said you started at -0. And I really wanted us to touch on that because a lot of women in your same position are still in the same position simply because they don't have the boldness or the braveness to even decide to make the decision that would have put them in a position where they would be starting at -0. Yeah, no, I think, a lot of women would have been deterred. But one thing that I think, I really want to focus on is that despite you starting at -0, you've been able to overcome so many different things. And so I wanted to just kind of go into the brain of being at -0. What do you now do? Right? Like, you've experienced so much. At this point, you're here. It's you alone with God. Where do you go? And how do you get to the beautiful woman that's sitting on the couch right now?
Yeah, honestly, so I'll step back a little bit. You said something also about people coming into marriages with their traumas from their childhood and everything they've been through and not having dealt with that or even recognizing that they have that and coming into marriage. That's the case. Even my ex wasn't a totally bad person. He just had his troubles and he had issues that he hadn't dealt with. Yeah. And that's the same for everyone, But you are right. It takes bravery and boldness to recognize it, to deal with it, and to trust in God that you're always going to be unfinished work. And there's, a need for you to continue working with God on yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself that you possibly can be. And how to get the boldness, one, to leave and stare at an abyss and still jump, because that's basically what I did. I had no job when I left. I hadn't worked for about 3 or 4 years by the time I was leaving. I'd practically run out of money. My own savings I'd been spending all the while I wasn't working. What I will say is I knew for certain, and nobody can get there except by themselves and with the help of God, that staying on meant death for me. Death literally and death figuratively. So any other option out there was going to be better than death. I don't mean that I thought he was going to kill me the next day, but I knew there was a possibility of dying, loss of life. I also knew there's a possibility of dying, as in my being, ability to be productive, to live a full and abundant life to the glory of God was going to die. I knew those two things for certain. And that made me courageous enough to realize that no matter what kind of life I would have later on, it would be better than that. That's going to be a +1, +2, +20, +50, +70 from a zero.
Yeah.
So that in itself was, and also when I started to see the effect on my children, believe it when people say sometimes women don't live for themselves, but they live for their children. As soon as at that time, I think my daughter was about, she was about 9, 10. I started saying, even my son, who at that time was probably maybe like 6 or something. And I wanted a different kind of life. And I wanted them to know another way to be and to live. Yeah. And so, that is part of what gave me the courage. And to go from zero to where I am now, I tell women, choose your hard. When I have younger women talk to me about the problems they have in their marriages and everything, and I say, you have to choose your hard. I said, both are hard. Both are extremely hard. As a woman stepping out of a marriage and deciding to create a new life of yourself is extremely hard. You have to be prepared for the hard. As a woman staying in an extremely difficult marriage where maybe you feel your life is under threat, or even if your life is under threat, you feel you are not able to live life to the full potential that God has created you to be, and you feel in many ways things are mitigating against your ability to continue to survive or to thrive, that's a hard thing. You can choose to stay and make the best out of it. That's hard. So what got me through to where I am today, I think, is the absolute belief in God and what he says. There are times when I'd literally say to God that, honestly, I don't know how you're going to do it. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know when you're going to do. But what I know is that my life will be full. And, the immense joy of being away from that environment where, even unbeknownst to myself, I was practically walking on eggshells all the time. I was in a state of high levels of anxiety and worry all the time. That in itself for me was a win. Yeah. The first few weeks I left, I slept like a baby. I couldn't stop sleeping, So it takes a realization that whatever life awaits you outside is better than where you're at. And you have to be very sure that if you're not sure, you can't make the leap. I know the material comfort sometimes scares women. How am I going to make it out? It has to be that you treasure your life and you believe in what God has deposited in you and your ability to recreate a new life for yourself. Yeah. But honestly, it's still a blessing because I didn't make myself. I didn't give myself the ability to believe these things. I think it's grace, but I think we have to also put ourselves in a situation where we are open and able to receive that grace. I know there'd be times when I'd be unwilling to pray and I just say, Lord, I'm just going to hold on to your feet. That's all. Yeah. Just let me be here. And whatever it is you want, bless me with, let it fall on me. Because I don't even have the energy or the ability to pray and ask you for what I want. I don't know what I want. Let me remain here and then do with me whatever you will. There's a prayer of surrender that I really, really love. I think it's probably a Catholic prayer, but it says something like, Jesus, I love you. All I have is yours. Yours I am. Yours I long to be. Do with me whatever you will. I earnestly believe that prayer with my soul. With every fiber of my being, I believe that prayer. And that's what I want. But I know what he wants for me is to have life and have it more abundantly. He wants me to be a living testimony of his love, of his goodness, of his abundance, of his providence, of his power. Yeah. And if I believe that's what he wants, I have to trust him. Then whatever situation I am in, it's what he wants for me at that time. And I trust him to be taking me through, It's him at the end of the day.
And this is this is why the Seasoned Woman exists, because we really want to talk about real stories, real life, real challenges and experiences, but it's also encouraging a generation of women to love God, to love themselves and to love people. But I just can't imagine like you being in this predicament and not having God, because
What
really
would you do?
you were trusting him every step of the
Every
way.
step of the way, every day, literally every day. Sometimes when I was on the run with the children and I literally wouldn't have money to feed my kids, forget myself, you know, and I had to trust him for, okay, what are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to eat tomorrow? You know, there was a high profile court case. I mean, I was sued court in London for international child abduction and kidnapping. And I was a litigant in person against 2 silks and like 7 juniors. And I'd come to court by myself every day, no lawyer. You know, so I mean, there's a lot of stories there, but at the end of it all, I just trusted. I knew this God that we serve, he created me. He knows what he wants to do with me. Let him do it. Let him do it. But I have to say, it is not without pain. And something that all of this has also taught me, and that I wasn't really that much well prepared for initially, was how to embrace pain and discomfort and anguish. You know, so often our faith, in many ways, many preachers teach us to reject it, pray against it. It's of the devil. It's not your portion. It's not. Honestly, what I've learned is that you have to embrace it. Because he said it, in this life you will have many
pain.
There'll be trials, there'll be tribulations, but fear not, I have overcome. You know, so there will be. So we have to learn to live with it and to expect it. We sometimes expend so much power and energy fighting it. Why fight it? Just hold his hand through it. Just learn, oh, you've come again. Honestly, actually, that was a phrase for me in this journey. Because there was a time when every time something really huge and like a storm was brewing, I just find myself praising God. Once I start having situations where I'm bursting into songs of praise and worship for no apparent reason, I start being afraid because I know it means something is coming, something is going to happen. But after a while, I stopped being apprehensive. I was like, okay, Jesus, here we go again. Something is going to happen, but Jesus, here we go again.
So yeah, that's what people don't talk about. People don't talk about a life with God not being absent of pain.
It's not. In fact, just embrace it. If there's something I want people to take away from our session today, is to look for love, mercy, and an ability to change and evolve. Being open to other perspectives, being open to new experiences, being open to other people's reality.
Yeah.
The second is learning to embrace pain, anguish, difficulties, situation as part of life.
Right.
And holding God through it, holding on to God through it, holding on to Christ through it. Dwelling in the fullness of the Holy Spirit that is within you through it. And not expending so much energy and effort at making it go away.
Yeah.
It's going to go away anyway. It's for a season.
He says it in the word, you know.
It's
morning may endure in the night, but joy comes in the morning.
Precisely. So, it's for a season.
That's why we have you on The Season Woman.
Oh, right? Yeah.
But I know we're gonna wrap up because you're a very busy woman. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I mean, looking at Zimbo as a little girl or a young woman getting ready to make important decisions and get married and enter into this life journey that you've experienced, what would you tell her from your perspective now? What do you tell young adult or teenage Zimbo from your perspective now?
I'll tell her that you're totally worth it.
Come on now.
I'll tell her, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. You don't have to work to earn anybody's approval or earn anybody's validation. Just do you. Be you. Because already you're kind, you're loving, you're nurturing. You don't have to prove anything. Because many of us women, especially, the society has kind of raised us to want to please people.
People, yeah.
We want to prove to people that we are good, that we are kind, that we are hardworking, that we are, That's why people say, oh, is she wife material? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Wife material. What does it mean? So it's like society has built up women so that they are constantly trying to prove they are enough.
Yeah.
They are constantly trying to prove that they are worth it. They're constantly trying to prove that they are as good as the men in professional settings. They're constantly trying to prove all the time.
Yeah.
I just
Rather than just being.
Just be yourself.
Yeah.
Don't prove. Don't try to earn anything. You are enough. You're enough.
And you truly are enough. I just want you to know, one, I feel honored that you even took out time. Because, one, let me be real and honest. I think one of the major things that attracts me, and it's an attraction. People only talk about attraction with the opposite sex, but it's like attraction can happen anywhere and anyhow, amongst friendships and relationships. But, you were introduced to me as a family member. One of the things that really drew me to you was because of your full, what word? I want to make sure I use the right words, but you were very much comfortable, in your own skin, but it was like this authenticity, and your full comfortability in being yourself, not trying to pretend to be anything but yourself, just being you, right? Yeah. And even for you to have the vulnerability and the openness to even come on the podcast, share your story in confidence, knowing that God has brought you such a mighty long way, in a way that you can also be an encouragement to so many young women. I don't know if I even have the words enough to express my gratitude to you. ADESIMBO, I truly, truly love you. I respect you. You are a mentor, an aunt, someone that I look to as a role model, and I'm truly so inspired and proud of you. Thank you for sharing your journey. I thank you for being a guest today on the Seasoned Woman. And really, I cannot wait to continue to see all of the mighty and great things that God is doing in your life. This is just the beginning. There's so much more that you're going to achieve, and I know that we will all be here to celebrate with you.
Thank you, and I it's been a pleasure. You've managed to draw so much out of me in this short time that we've had together this afternoon, and I just want to say it's an honor and a privilege to have been a part of your podcast series.
Thank you.
And I love the impact you're having. And may God continue to also inspire you to higher and higher levels of greatness.
Amen.
Mwah, love you.
All right, enough of the mushiness. Thank you.
Thank you.